Most people think alchemy was a medieval obsession with turning lead into gold, but that idea alone tells me they were never taught what alchemy actually was. Because the greatest alchemists in history weren't chasing wealth, they were decoding consciousness. They were studying the laws that govern transformation itself. And the reason this knowledge was hidden, outlawed, and ridiculed for centuries is because once you understand it, you can no longer be controlled the same way. Alchemy was never a fantasy. It was an operative science. The old texts speak very clearly about this, not symbolically, but structurally. These men weren't guessing. They were physicians, philosophers, mathematicians, and mystics who observed nature so deeply that they began to understand its inner laws. They discovered that matter, mind, and spirit obey the same principles, and if you understand those principles, transformation becomes inevitable. This is why Hermes Trismegistus was called the father of alchemy. Not because he made gold, but because he understood correspondence, as above, so below. What happens in the unseen happens in the seen. What happens in the psyche happens in the body. What happens in the soul eventually crystallizes into form. This is the foundation of Hermetic law, and it's the foundation of alchemy. When alchemists spoke of base metals, they weren't insulting matter, they were describing states, dense states. Heavy states, unrefined states. Lead wasn't evil, it was unfinished, and gold wasn't superior, it was integrated. Complete, coherent. This is why alchemy was always about purification, not creation. Nothing new was added. Everything was revealed. This is also why so many alchemists were persecuted, imprisoned, or silenced. Because if people realized they could refine themselves emotionally, psychologically, spiritually without the permission of authority, religion, or empire, the entire structure of control would collapse. Paracelsus understood this deeply. He rejected the medical dogma of his time and taught that healing does not come from blindly following tradition, it comes from studying nature directly. He believed the body carries intelligence, that illness is not punishment, it is imbalance, and that the physician's role is not domination, but cooperation with the inner healer. He spoke openly about the invisible forces shaping the physical world, about how spirit and matter are not separate, about how true medicine works with soul, not just symptom. This is why he was hated. This is why he was feared. And this is why his teachings survived, because truth doesn't die when it's buried, it ferments. Raymond Lully understood alchemy as devotion. His life wasn't about comfort, it was about transformation through discipline. He believed knowledge itself was a sacred responsibility, that wisdom without ethics was dangerous, that power without humility leads to corruption. His work wasn't about escape, it was about service through refinement. And then there is Nicholas Flamel, perhaps the most misunderstood of all. People obsess over whether he made gold, whether he discovered the philosopher's stone, but they miss the real point. His writings describe stages of inner vision, layers of symbolic revelation, progressive awakenings of perception. The book was never just a manuscript, it was a mirror. Alchemy always required patience, years of solitude, repetition, failure, reflection. This is why it was never meant for the masses, not because it was elitist, but because it demanded responsibility. You cannot rush refinement. You cannot fake coherence. You cannot bypass integration. And this is the part most modern spirituality skips. Everyone wants manifestation. No one wants transmutation. But alchemy teaches that you don't manifest until you purify the vessel. You don't create until you stabilize the inner chaos. You don't call in light while avoiding shadow. The alchemists knew this. That's why their work began with dissolution, not attraction. They dissolved false identity, false belief, false ego, false certainty. Only then did anything real emerge. And this is why alchemy is returning now, because we are in a collective stage of refinement. Old structures are dissolving, identities are breaking down, nervous systems are overwhelmed, souls are remembering, and many people feel lost because they are in the Negredo phase, the blackening, without understanding what it is. Nothing is wrong with you if you feel this way. Something is happening through you. Alchemy teaches that breakdown precedes breakthrough, that confusion precedes clarity. that darkness is not failure, it is fermentation. The gold does not appear at the beginning. It appears at the end and only if the process is respected. This is the work I guide people through, not bypassing, not pretending. Not spiritual performance, but real integration, real refinement, real embodiment. If this spoke to something ancient in you, it's because you already recognize the pattern. You're not late. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're in the middle of a transformation that was never meant to be easy, but was always meant to be meaningful. And if you're ready to understand what stage you're in, if you're ready to work with the process instead of fighting it, if you're ready to stop trying to become someone else and instead refine who you already are, I offer one-to-one guidance for those walking the alchemical path and deeper teachings inside the alchemical garden. Links are in my bio. Alchemy was never about turning lead into gold. It was about remembering that you were always the stone.